Good morning and welcome to the ISO Board of Governors General Session meeting. Please note that all attendees are muted until the public comment portion of the call, and we will give you instructions on how to enter the comment queue at that time. Closed captioning is available on Zoom by clicking the captions icon at the bottom of your screen. With that, I'll go ahead and turn the call over to Chair Mary Leslie. Please go ahead.
Thank you. And good morning, everyone. It's good to see some people in person today. And it's definitely good to see the staff and KISO board members. And Angelina, you with us via the internet. Today, we have a very exciting agenda. We will be looking at the proposed approval of the Swift North transmission, bringing clean wind from Idaho into California. And we will have the annual rotating of the gavel, where we'll be, I think, successfully electing Jan Shorey as our new chair, which of course is an excellent idea since she is she's a very good choice because she brings over 14 years of experience as the GM and the CEO of SMUD, a very well-run utility, in addition to her years at NERC as a trustee. So between her and I don't know about Severin as the vice chair, but the most notable individual, I think for sure, probably in the United States for market design. Is that fair, Severin? No, it's very fair. Okay, everywhere I go, do you know Severin Bornstein? Yes, I know Severin Bornstein. Okay, and finally, we'll be approving, I believe, the 2024 budget for next year. But I just want to say, as the outgoing chair, what an honor it has been to serve. And this rotating chair process that we put in place 3 years ago, I think is outstanding because whether you want to chair or not, it's good to have the responsibility because I think it creates a camaraderie among the members where no one is king. And everyone has to share in the responsibility of being in the hot seat, at least for 1 year with their vice chair. So listen, when I say hot seat, it was a great seat because the 2023 year was one of our most outstanding years. I mean, between the historic level of transmission that we approved, Neil, at over $7 billion, to the fact that we approved that day ahead EDAM program, which we had worked over 4 or 5 years on, and now this new subscriber transmission owner program, which I think is a game changer. And now my personal favorite, which I learned yesterday, as everyone knows, is the amount of new energy, clean energy we interconnected this last year. So on any given day, apparently yesterday we had upwards of 5 gigawatts, but we aspire to closer to 7, which is critical to showing that we can create enough power to actually meet our goals between now and 2045 for California and the rest of the West, and that the power will be there when people need it. Okay, so with that, Roger, let's call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Leslie. And yes, I will call the roll and we'll start with you, Chair Leslie. Lily, you are here.
I am present.
Vice Chair Shorey.
Present.
Governor Bornstein.
Present.
Governor Edo.
Present.
And Governor Galitova.
Present.
Excellent. Thank you, governors. We do have a full complement of our board and a quorum, and we can proceed. I do want to note that since we're in a hybrid process today, that we have if we have public comment, it would be both from the room. There's possibilities for both from the room as well as virtual attendees. And from the room, we ask if you have any comments to fill out a comment card, and we will collect those and provide them to our chair and in order to call it at the appropriate time. Virtual attendees will ask the operator to instruct the attendees in how to enter the comment queue, and then we will go from there. And I will continue from here since our next item is general public comment, and I will for the record note that we do have a general public comment letter from the Large Scale Solar Association that has been provided to each of the Board of Governors, and then from here now we can go to actual public comment. I understand we have no comment cards from the room, though we may have some in the queue So operator, if we can check the queue for public comments for general public comment. And to make that clear, this is comments for items that are not specifically identified on the agenda today.
On Zoom, if you would like to make a comment, please press the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen to enter the comment queue. You will be sent a prompt to unmute yourself on Zoom. At that time, please then remember to state your name and affiliation, as well as your comment. If you are dialed into our phone-only line, you can press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the queue. At this time, we do have 2 hands up in our virtual queue. Caller, you've been sent a prompt to unmute yourself. Please go ahead.
Yes, hi, this is Susan Schneider, Phoenix Consulting, representing the Large Scale Solar Association. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. It is on the subject of the LSA letter that was provided. So I just have a few points to make. First, I wanted to let you know that we've heard loud and clear before the complaints about sending letters too close to the board meeting. So we did try to send this letter late last week, and hope you've had a chance to look at it. So we appreciate it, and we appreciate the ability to talk to you about this today. Since we've written the letter, we've had a chance to meet with Neil and Elliot and their team, and we had a very, very productive conversation. And we're very hopeful that that a mutually agreeable and cooperative solution can be developed to address this situation. So that does make us feel better about the situation. We're hopeful we'll be able to move ahead and not lose these projects. I would like also to thank Neil for some clarification that he provided to us late yesterday, where some of these projects are sitting there basically with infeasible CODs, but with shortlist PPA positions and being viable and ready to move ahead, but unable to execute LGIAs in the meantime, and very little time left to be able to get executed PPAs, which they did not think they would need for another year. But we've been assured by Neil that that they're pending some resolution of this issue, at least until mid-February or so, when the TPD retention affidavits are due. We will not be seeing enforcement actions to force these projects out of the queue before that time. So we appreciate the additional time and Neil's assurance. And again, we do hope that we can come up with a cooperative solution to the situation. But I did want to at least give the board members opportunity now for the rest of the public comment time here to see if anybody has any questions or comments or concerns or anything you'd like to, anything I can help with. I think the letter is fairly comprehensive. But just to see if there's any unanswered questions or lack of clarity that I could address at this time from any of the board members.
Board members, any questions for Susan Schneider? None in the room. Angelina, give you an opportunity. I see you shaking your head. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate that. Operator, is another comment?
Yes, there's one more hand up in the queue. Caller, you've been sent a prompt to unmute yourself. Please go ahead. Dorothy Sosnowski, you've been sent a prompt to unmute yourself. Please press unmute on your screen.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, CAISO Board of Governors. My name is Dorothy Sosnowski. I am the Vice President of Development West at AES Clean Energy, which is a business unit within AES Corporation. We're a large multinational independent power producer with 2 traditional utilities and over 10 gigawatts of operating resources across the US, including 5 gigawatts in California. Our commitment to the state extends further with an additional 2 gigawatts of clean energy resources slated to come online by 2025. During our tenure in California, over the last 30 years, we've collaborated with CAISO on various projects, fostering outstanding working relationships with the staff and the leadership team. I'm here today to highlight a matter of utmost significance, aligning with the concerns expressed by LSA. This issue is not only relevant to our projects, but also holds profound implications for the overall development landscape across California. We have a project in San Diego that underwent a one-year pause as permitted by the CAISO tariff. However, upon project resumption, while we would be able to meet the original commercial operation date, the PTO cannot, and CAISO has notified us that it intends to withdraw the project as a result. Operating within a complex and dynamic environment is the norm for our industry, and unforeseen circumstances, including PTO delays, are commonplace. Nonetheless, the recent interpretation by CAISO asserting that if a project has parked, it is not eligible for a PTO construction delay exemption, even if the project could meet its original operation date, has jeopardized our viable project. The project has 100% site control. We've submitted a major use permit application and are finalizing the project's draft environmental impact report. Our investment currently exceeds $7 million in land, permits, and easements, and community engagement, wages, and more. And we plan in total to invest $587 million upon completion. Once completed, the venture will not only contribute to the local economy, but also help the state meet its clean energy goals. This interpretation by CAISO threatens the confidence of developers and investors in California's ability to maintain a predictable and transparent process. We respectfully request the board's intervention to direct CAISO management to reevaluate and revise its stance on this matter and to delay any further enforcement activity until the matter is resolved. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from the board? Elliot, did you want?
Yeah, I would just, Chair Leslie, just verify indeed, yes, it's been a good couple of days of dialogue. We've appreciated the chance to share views, and as was mentioned by Susan, I know Neil and his team are looking closely at this. Our General Counsel's office obviously looking at alternatives, and we're going to certainly keep working here to try to bring the issue to a satisfactory resolution. So appreciate the comments, and we'll continue the dialogue.
Terrific. Any comments from the board? Seeing none, we will move to our next item, which is the general session minutes. Roger?
Yes, thank you, Chair Leslie. Can I have a motion for the September 21st, 2000, or for approval of the September 21st, 2023 general session minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you, Governors. The motion passes, and back to you, Chair Leslie.
It's now my privilege to introduce our CEO report. Elliot?
Thank you, Chair Leslie, Vice Chair Shorey, Governors. Wonderful to see you all here in person, and to folks here live with us today, and to everybody online. It's great to be here for our final meeting of the year. It's as we mentioned, it has been a very busy and productive year for the CAISO, and I think as the year winds down, I have a number of topics certainly want to touch on here. But before turning to the issues, Chair Leslie wanted to thank you for your service as chair. As you mentioned, it's been I think a very consequential 2023. Have really appreciated your sort of passion and focus on the issues, and keeping us focused on getting those resources on board and just delivering results. So really appreciate that. And I think just in general, also wanted just to acknowledge, the chair of the EIM governing body, Andy Campbell, is with us here this morning. Andy, thanks for being with us, and to all the members of the WM governing body. It's really appreciate the collaboration. Wonderful 2023. So looking forward to, glad we keep you with us. And as the changing of the guard, it's again, thank you so much for an outstanding 2023. I do want to maybe put a couple exclamation points on some of the issues that you raised earlier. Looking back on this year, it really was a consequential year for the grid. And as I've mentioned, everything we do here at the CAISO is really done through partnership and collaboration. It really is a key theme of this year. Even just looking back this past summer, again, July and August of this year were really a demonstration of the importance of working together, and felt really good that we were able to work through this summer with really, at the end of the day, a very strong performance on grid reliability. We've approved billions of dollars in new transmission upgrades, advanced our new subscriber participating transmission owner model, significant progress on the extended day ahead market, really looking forward to moving into implementation there for next year. Really, I think taking very tangible steps to improve our customer service model, and really embracing the stakeholder engagement and working group model. That's something that's really become part and parcel of how we're interacting with the region, and of course, making great progress on our control center modernization initiative, and brought them close to 100 new people into the ISO family this year. Big hiring year for our human resource division across the organization. And I get a chance to meet with all of the new employees, and it's just a great new cadre of folks coming on board to join us, joining our existing fabulous team. So it really has been an amazing year. I will say, I do hope that folks have a chance to take the time to read our ISO 2023 year in review document that was produced by our communications group this last a few weeks. Really nice read. It's posted out on our Energy Matters blog that really talks a lot about a lot of the shared accomplishments of 2023. And to everybody here within the organization, to all our partners across the West, thank you guys so much for helping us just have a really successful 2023. You know, I just a couple more things on reliability. You know, at the end of the day, we all know, you know, everything sort of starts for us and focusing on reliability. And it was really, I'm really pleased to say that at the end of the day, a really good, strong year for grid performance. You know, the tables were a little bit turned this year. You know, in California, we sort of went into the summer in pretty good shape, right? We had you know, a significant amount of additional capacity that had been brought onto the grid, you know, a couple thousand megawatts of additional batteries and more resources. We, of course, unlike last year, we're now dealing with having a record snowpack in California, a big difference just within the span of 10 weeks. And whereas we were experiencing relatively modest loads of temperatures here in California, other parts of the West really were hit with the extreme weather, you know, particularly in the desert Southwest, up north. And so back on July 20th, you know, that was an evening when the overarching grid across the West, you know, really ran into some strained conditions, quite a bit of volatility within the hour. And saw that continue for a few more nights into late July, but really deploying the tools available to us, really taking a look at all the different variables and working very closely with the adjacent system operators, able to kind of work through those conditions. Thanks to the folks in the demand response patch here in California who helped on that front. We really appreciated that. And then, of course, you know, some rapid learnings about, you know, just what state of charge means in a battery context and multi-interval optimization, the kind of volatility that's opening up inside the system, and commercial scheduling and tagging practices, making sure everybody really understands exactly what the rule book looks like on that, and how we're doing everything we possibly can to support transfers across our system, including meeting our obligations on wheel-throughs across the system. So that was good learnings. And by the time we got into August, of course, when the broader West got hit simultaneously with pretty good heat, that was a time when we really saw all the different elements of the operation working in tandem. You know, the day-ahead market, then the hour-ahead scheduling process, the WEIM working to just cycle power across the West, and then of course the RC even helping out with redispatch and transmission congestion management. And this was the year when I think more than ever we saw that in addition to the $5 billion of production environmental cost savings that we've seen from EIM over the last decade, that reliability benefit, the ability to provide additional resilience and to help multiple balancing authorities with challenging grid conditions is really something that has become even much more visible to us. And every year we learn a few more things. But here from Folsom, you know, working with the team, working with Mark, working with our operators, just watching the grid operate, you can just tangibly feel and observe that reliability and resilience values. It's just been a really important part of the equation. So we're looking forward to continuing to build on that platform. Of course, with EIM, we're happy to have a few even new participants this year now into the family. And of course, next year, it's going to be all about implementation on EDAM. We're really excited to be rolling up our sleeves, working with our vendors, working with our first few participants, hoping to have a few more here in the early part of next year, and building that coalition and just continuing to optimize transmission connectivity and resource diversity across that big Western footprint. Just a couple last things to mention here. Of course, later this morning, we're going to be hearing about the SWIP North project. Really excited to bring this project to bear. I just wanted to mention, you know, as the West continues to think about ways to enhance transmission planning. You know, we've really also simultaneously been very focused on making real and tangible progress on subscribing and energizing some of the transmission lines that have been in planning stages in some cases for years. Of course, we already know the work we've done with Transwest Express. We're heavily engaged working with the folks in New Mexico on the Patterns and Zia line. And with the SWIP North line, this is a really exciting opportunity to open up some really additional valuable resource diversity index straight to the California PUC's integrated resource plans, open up some access to wind in the Idaho Plateau, and also just to bring some additional interconnectivity across the West and build on that legacy of transmission connectivity they have across the West. So we're really excited to continue our both in-state transmission build out and those partnerships with extra regional entities to continue building out the grid in the West. Looking forward to the conversation this morning and our kind of staged approval process to that line. And then, of course, really excited earlier this week to see the latest iteration of documentation on our interconnection process enhancements on the street. Of course, as you know, we've decided, based off feedback from stakeholders, to take a bit more time with the extension of the compliance deadline around Order 2023, and just generally folks wanting to spend a little bit more time working through the details of our interconnection process enhancements initiative. We will be now coming back to you in May of 2024 with what I hope will be a really strong package of transformational queue management changes with fabulous stakeholder support. And to all the folks that have been participating in that working group, really appreciate the support. And I did mention earlier, but I would just end by saying I'm really pleased again to have so successfully onboarded so many new folks here to the ISO. We're now back to vacancy and retention rates now. They're basically at pre-pandemic levels. So I feel like we've been able to recover there, which is something that's really important to all of us, and also just continue to attract that next generation of just really talented public servants to help us deliver on our important mission. So again, thank you all so much to everybody here and all our partners for a fabulous year. And again, Chair Leslie, thanks again for your service and looking forward to a productive 2024.
Thank you, Elliot. Any comments from the board? The laudatory, you're not going to take a victory lap on anything in particular, Jan? The FERC, no? FERC compliance? Okay, oh, I get, oh, it's my lone victory lap. Thank you. Okay, not even the FERC compliance. Okay. And Elliot, I think on behalf of all of us, we want to thank you and your team because you've done an outstanding job. And as we did the review yesterday, it was really apparent just how the capacity you've built here and the challenges that you faced over the last few years and the situation you inherited, actually. So I think all of that is acknowledged, and I think the team you've assembled and each of the senior executives here, you know, we want to thank them because you've done an outstanding job, and we're really proud of you.
We appreciate that. And of course, one of the things we focus on here is succession planning. And so I'll have to thank you for good succession planning as well. So we're excited to, as you pass the baton to Jan and to Severin, I think we've got a great team on the board as well. So thank you so much for the support.
You're welcome. And it's solid. And also, I just want to point out that the point you just made about resiliency and regarding the EIM. And as I go to introduce our EIM governing board chair, Andy Campbell, I'd just like to say that the point that you're making, sometimes the amount of money that EIM has produced in terms of savings, it shadows these other issues about resiliency and interdependence. And I think these are the issues that actually are more important in the relationship with the EIM, that over the long haul, that the fact that we can depend on our neighbor and that we create an interdependent system is the critical piece. The fact that we save a lot of money, that's just frosting on the cake, right? Okay, so with that, we have to thank Andy Campbell, our chair. It's been an honor to serve with you this last year, and we look forward to your report.
So Chair Leslie, thank you for the welcome. Vice Chair Shorey and governors, thank you for inviting me to share updates from the governing body. So we held a general session meeting 2 days ago. I started the meeting with some reflections on the year. 2023 was the year of joint authority. The Board of Governors and the governing body made some very important decisions together during the year, including in this room where we approved the extended day-ahead market policy and governance changes. Elliot Mainzer followed me with providing a CEO report. And then we heard from Haley Williamson, who is the chair of the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada and also chair of the Body of State Regulators. The Body of State Regulators had a recent meeting. They continue to be in education mode. At their latest meeting, they heard presentations from the Department of Market Monitoring and from ISO leadership about July of this year. It was a complicated, a consequential month, and there was really a lot of interest in kind of more visibility and analysis on that. The state regulators really appreciated that analysis. It's really gone a long way just to increase the level of understanding of how the markets work, especially in potentially stressed conditions. Next, the Regional Issues Forum Chair, Josh Walter, who works at Seattle City Light. He provided an update. He reviewed their recent meeting, which included stakeholder presentations on day-ahead market benefits studies, looking at one market, two markets, different market configurations. Really another great information sharing opportunity for stakeholders. And then Becky Robinson, Director of Market Policy Development, provided an update on policy initiatives that impact the energy imbalance and extended day-ahead markets. This includes topics where, as Elliot mentioned, ISO is facilitating stakeholder working groups to really set the agenda for the initiative, and this is requiring a lot of intentional focus on the ISO's part. With price formation, greenhouse gas coordination, gas resource management, those are 3 examples which are going through this working group process. And so this concludes my report. I just wanted to appreciate Chair Leslie for the 6 months in partnership we've had as chairs. Very much value that partnership and that time working together. I look forward to continue to working together in our ongoing roles. And I look forward to working with your successor, who we officially learn about later in this meeting. But thank you very much. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Andy. Now it's time to take a look at the next item, which is the decision item on the Southwest Intertie SWIP North. Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Leslie. Let me note for the record that we did receive a public comment letter from Cal CCA on the decision on Southwest Intertie Project North, and that letter has been provided to each of the Board of Governors. And with that, I'll turn it to Neil to introduce the topic.
Good morning, and thank you, Roger. So I will be turning the microphone over to Jeff Dullington, our Director of Transmission Infrastructure Planning, to walk through the detailed recommendation and the conditions attached to this recommendation. But before Jeff took that on, I did want to actually walk through some of the process of what is actually being approved today and what the next steps are, because this is a unique project and it has quite a few differences from a conventional transmission plan approval decision, where under our existing transmission control agreement with incumbent transmission owners, the transmission owner moves immediately to implementation. This process is quite different, both because of the nature of the project and because of our negotiated arrangements with Idaho Power to access the capacity jointly. So what is being asked today is for the approval of an addendum to the 2022-2023 transmission plan that identifies the need for the capacity based on the integrated resource planning of the Public Utilities Commission, establishing resource requirements, and allows us to move forward into the next steps. It does not move immediately into implementation. Those next steps are also tied to the conditions Jeff will walk through, but I thought it would be helpful to hit the sequencing to help understand how we move forward. So subject to the board approving the addendum in today's meeting, the next step is really, and this is tied to one of the conditions, is to look for the Public Utilities Commission to reaffirm the interest and the need for accessing Idaho wind resources. They have an excellent opportunity, and we're coordinating with them to conduct that review as they move to providing us the renewable generation portfolios to be used in next year's transmission plan. That will be communicated to us in a decision in February of 2024. So that's a very good gating point to ensure that there's continued interest in pursuing these resources. That's particularly important because some stakeholders have raised concerns with price increases associated with accessing the capacity since the Public Utilities Commission last looked at it. While we're not expecting that decision to change because of the benefit of the diversity of the resources, it is appropriate for the Public Utilities Commission to have that opportunity. So that's a very important checkpoint for us. Next, we do expect Idaho Power to move forward with a filing in their integrated resource planning process with the Idaho Public Utilities Commission, and we expect to see the results of that process by September. That timing is also important because in between then, We're expecting then that LS Power or their affiliate, Great Basin Transmission, will be applying to the ISO, to the Board of Governors at the ISO, for approval to become a participating transmission owner. And that we expect to see happen on July 1st. That's part of our tariff structure for integrating new transmission owners. We have windows on July 1st and January 1st. That package that's presented to the board, which is a Board of Governor decision item, will include the detailed cost containment and termination provisions that we know are also important for stakeholders to have comfort with. Now, that application is made on July 1st, but we only expect to see that come to the board for a decision in November based on the time established and the public notice requirements in our process. So you will see that decision, or you will have that decision before you in November. By the time you get there, you have the benefit of the CPUC decision. We expect the benefit of the Idaho Public Utilities Commission decision and visibility of the cost containment provisions. Assuming that that is also approved and we continue to move forward, and Idaho is continuing to move forward, we would then put those provisions into a project sponsor agreement that needs to be filed and approved by FERC. There will also be opportunities in the FERC proceeding for stakeholders to raise concern. We expect that filing to occur in January 2025. So this process steps out through the course of 2024, providing different opportunities for review of cost concerns, as well as for ensuring that the resources are continued to be found needed. Only after the FERC approves the project sponsor agreement do any cost commitment issues arise, termination provisions go into effect. And that's also when we would be starting a quarterly cost review process with LS Power, which is already indicated in the addendum is part of the cost containment measures we expect to bring forward later. So we believe that these gating checkpoints provide the right milestones, the right transparency, the right visibility. And we really think that helps address some of the other stakeholder concerns we've also heard of as we've moved through this process. I should also acknowledge we do recognize that our timeline moving from our stakeholder communication, the fact that we were moving on this project was identified when the Board of Governors approved the transmission plan in May of this year. But when we were able to re-engage with stakeholders at the beginning of November, that timeline was admittedly compressed, getting to today's decision point. We think it did provide the opportunities for stakeholder input, especially given the checkpoints moving forward. And the timeframe was largely driven by our need to accommodate Idaho Power's timelines in preparing their filings for their Public Utilities Commission. So like I said, we do recognize that the timeline was admittedly very structured and had to move forward very crisply, but we do believe there were opportunities for comments. So let me wrap up there. It would probably be best to then let Jeff walk through the resolution, the presentation itself on the content and how we got here, and then we'd be looking forward to helping with any questions. Jeff?
Yep. Good morning, Chair Leslie and members of the board. As Neil indicated, I'll be presenting the decision item on the Southwest Intertie project as an addendum to the 2022-2023 transmission planning process. And in the 2022-2023 transmission plan that was approved by the Board of Governors on May of 2023 meeting, as Neil indicated, it indicated that the analysis of the SWIP North project, along with discussions with Idaho Power, would continue beyond the approval of the transmission plan. So with this, the ISO is now recommending for conditional approval, and I'll go through the conditions as I go through the presentation, of the SWIP North project as an addendum to the 2022-2023 transmission plan. Next slide. The ISO uses the California Public Utilities Commission portfolios that is developed through their integrated resource planning. as a key input to the ISO's annual transmission planning process. In the 2022-2023 transmission planning process, the California Public Utilities Commission's base portfolio included 1,062 megawatts from either Idaho or Wyoming, and the sensitivity portfolio included 1,000 megawatts from Idaho and 1,500 megawatts from Wyoming. For the 2023-2024 transmission planning process that is currently underway, the base and sensitivity portfolios also include 1,000 megawatts of wind from Idaho and 1,500 megawatts from Wyoming. And similarly, for the next planning cycle, the California Public Utilities Commission's draft portfolio, base portfolio, currently also indicates 1,000 megawatts of wind from Idaho and 1,500 megawatts from Wyoming. Next slide. The SWIP North project is the only active proposal that will provide direct access to wind resources in Idaho. The SWIP North project extends the 500 kV transmission from Robinson Substation in central Nevada to Midpoint Substation in Idaho, as indicated in blue. Connecting to the existing One Nevada line at Robinson Substation, indicated in red, and to the ISO system through the Desert Link line from Harry Allen to El Dorado, shown here in green, that was approved in the 2013-2014 transmission plan and was placed into service in August of 2020. Next slide, please. The capacity sharing between Great Basin Transmission, a subsidiary of Ellis Power, and NV Energy is governed by a transmission use agreement approved by FERC on SWIP North and One Nevada line, as indicated in the table here. The ISO's participation with Idaho Power in funding the SWIP North project will result in Idaho Power assuming 500 megawatts of entitlements in the south to north direction, with the remaining Great Basin transmission entitlements in both directions to be assumed by the ISO. The ISO is to fund 77.2% of the overall project cost, and Idaho Power funding the remaining 22.8%. As Neil indicated, requesting the approval as an extension of the 2022-2023 transmission plan aligns with Idaho Power's intent to file a SWIP related case with the Idaho Public Utilities Commission by the end of the year or early into 2024. Next slide. The ISO believes that this recommendation for the proposal is cost effective, reduces cost impacts to California ratepayers, and delivers value through collaboration. As previously indicated, the SWIP North is the only current known transmission project that can enable access to wind resources in Idaho. The ISO is proposing to assume entitlements as opposed to approving and procuring an entirely new 500+ mile transmission line between Idaho and California. And the current total cost estimate for SWIP North, including the online system upgrades, is approximately $1 billion, which is comparable to relatively competitively procured projects. And in addition, FERC's approval of the transmission revenue requirement structure and transmission owner tariff is one of the recommended conditions for approval, as is the ISO's board approval of Great Basin Transmission as a participating transmission owner. Next slide. Stakeholders were generally supportive of the ISO's proposal and efforts to reduce costs. Stakeholders did have concerns, as Neil indicated, with increased project cost estimates, particularly with the inclusion of the online upgrades and continued viability of the ISO wind resources. The ISO agrees with the concerns and has added a condition of the approval of the California Public Utilities Commission, reaffirming the need for Idaho wind in its 2022 or 2024, 2025 transmission planning process portfolio decision. And also as a part of the additional conditions related to the board approval, Cost containment measures will be specified in the definitive agreements with Great Basin Transmission. Stakeholders also requested clarification on renewable portfolio standard requirements, maximum import capability allocation, the nature of the definitive agreements, and containment measures. The ISO addressed the stakeholder comments during the stakeholder call and in a detailed response matrix that is posted on the ISO's website, and in addition to those provided in the board memo. So with this, management is requesting the ISO board approve addendum 1 to the 2022-2023 transmission plan, identifying the ISO's assumption of operational control of Great Basin Transmission's entitlements on SWIP North and One Nevada line as a joint regional planning or regional policy-driven project with Idaho Power, and conditioned upon Idaho Power filing and receiving approval from the Idaho Public Utilities Commission for a SWIP-related case by September 30th of 2024. The California Public Utilities Commission reaffirming the need for the Idaho Wind in its 2024-2025 transmission planning process portfolio decision. Great Basin Transmission, a subsidiary of LS Power, declaring its intent to become a participating transmission owner by July 1st, 2024. Submission and approval of its application in accordance with the CAISO tariff and transmission control agreement, and the Federal Energy Regulated Commission acceptance of Great Basin Transmission owners' tariff and transmission revenue requirement rate structure. With that, I'll pass it back to you, Mary, or for further assessment
Thank you,
or
Jeff.
discussion.
Any comments from the board? Any questions from the board? Jeff?
Can you clearly this supports the policy goals. Can you speak to any operational reliability impacts that having this line would offer to California or the West?
Jeff and I were trading off who would respond to that. Let me take the first shot and I'll turn to Jeff if there's any additional detail. The bottom line here, though, is that the ISO is taking over entitlements, not actual operational control of the physical assets. So these are entitlements and scheduling rights that will be incorporated into our market. Resources will be pseudo-tied over them, but the ISO is not taking on transmission maintenance responsibilities or operational control of the physical lines themselves. So we do not see reliability aspects associated with the scheduling rates. Sorry.
7.
Actually, I mean, there's still some reliability impact of completing this line.
Yes, I would say positive reliability benefits of moving forward with the line itself.
That was my question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was always looking. Transmission planners, we always look at the negative. Yes,
That's the lawyer's jobs.
The positive benefits here are both from a reliability perspective, as well as the project had been studied for a number of years in the past for its market benefits, even without the policy benefit. There are real market and reliability benefits associated with the project, but those alone were not sufficient for us to build the case recommending moving forward for approval. It really did hinge on the policy driver of the CPUC portfolios. We do see having a parallel path to COI and to some of the backbone inside California to be helpful, as well as the market opportunities that those provide as well, which is also part of the reason why, while our policy interest is in north to south capacity, we do see benefits in retaining some of the south to north capacity as well. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thanks. Thank you.
Jan?
Yes, sorry.
I believe Severin was,
No. That was.
but you can see. Okay.
Okay. Okay, well, I just wanted to, first off, I want to thank you for all the work that's gone into this. And in terms of thinking through what we are doing today, it seems to me that in some ways you could characterize it as a conditional approval with off-ramps then going forward, or simply say it's the first step to keep the project moving, but you've outlined a number of fairly critical decisions by others that have to be done including a PUC review, which is where I think the analysis of the cost and the value and the importance in the overall energy mix for California utilities of the wind resources in Idaho will be done. And that, I take it, is underway now, and we think we might get that as soon as February. Does that seem the ballpark timeframe that we'll know from the PUC?
Yes, that is the February is the current timeline for the CPUC to provide through a decision our portfolios for the 24-25 portfolios.
And then one of the charts you put up, Jeff, I just wanted to confirm, the chart that you showed that specifically identified Idaho wind, it had Wyoming also, but Idaho wind resources. Were each of those additive, or is it the same 1,000 megawatts being carried forward in each model?
It's the same carried forward in each
It's
model.
the same carried forward in each
correct.
model. It's just that the importance or the certainty associated with thinking we want that is becoming clearer and clearer because they're moving it from sensitivity cases into base cases,
Correct.
which I assume means it has more certainty associated with wanting to do it.
Yeah, and with it in the base case, that is what we use for recommending of approvals for the transmission projects.
The next condition you outlined was Idaho Power needs to get its approval because we're doing this as a partnership agreement with them. And they are trying to get something filed by the end of the month. And we're supposed to find out by September. I'm just putting my annual calendar together as the incoming
Yes.
chair.
Yes, that's
So
the
in the
timing.
September timeframe, we'll expect something from Idaho. And then you all will be working with LS Power to come up with the participating transmission owner structure or the,
Yes,
excuse me, the agreement, the project sponsor agreement.
But yes, they first apply, LS Power will first apply to become a participating transmission owner.
Okay, so that's.
That's
first
an
step.
application they make to the ISO, and it's a Board of Governor decision. There is a time frame for public comment and so forth set out that will lead to that decision being before you. You see the material in July 1st.
July.
The
okay.
decision is in November. So
Okay.
by then, you also have the benefit of those other inputs.
Got it. So we think that by less than a year from now, then, by the holidays next year, we should be on our way to Idaho, or we will have taken off and gone in other directions based on these interim
Yes.
steps.
Yes.
Okay, I think I've got the schedule pinned down. And thank you for all of your hard work, and thanks to LS Power and everybody that's been involved. And I do also want to thank all of the stakeholders that filed comments. We really do appreciate all the work and effort. There will be plenty of opportunities, I think, as we go along for additional input. But I think of this as basically a first step, but it's also a conditional approval to keep the project going. So thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Angelina, do you have any comments on this project?
No, I was going to have the same comments along the lines that Jan had. So it's good to know that we've got off-ramps and we've got milestones, and I'm excited about this line. I think it will be a benefit not only from a policy perspective, but from serving the overall West. So yes, thank you all for all the hard work.
Thank you. And now we will take comments from those, public comment from those in the room. We'll begin with Ethan Stonecipher from the IBEW. Ethan.
How's that now? Good morning, Board of Governors. My name is Ethan Stonecipher. I'm a business representative with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 1245. We represent over 27,000 members in Northern California and Northern Nevada. In partnering with other IBEW locals, including in Las Vegas and Southern California, we helped to create the California-Nevada JATC, which provides a construction workforce that serves Northern California and Northern Nevada. IBEW Local Union 1245 urges the CAISO Board of Governors to improve the SWIP North Transmission Project. There are a multitude of benefits that California stands to gain from the construction of this project. Additionally, other states who have significant projected needs will benefit from this. Multiple large transmission projects are planned in the Western United States in the upcoming years. With a large amount of labor needed to complete these projects, we have a dire need to train a new and upcoming workforce to meet these demands. The approval and construction of the SWIP North Transmission Project will allow organic growth of future workers to meet the expected demand increase. The approval of this already permitted and designed project will allow ISO to achieve the CPUC portfolio requirements regarding wind generation. It will allow the Pacific Northwest to access any excess California solar generation. Serving as a tie line between the Midpoint substation in Idaho and El Dorado substation in southern Nevada, SWIP will require 285 miles of a new 500 kV transmission line to be constructed, utilizing the existing One Nevada and Desert Link transmission lines. Only 231 miles of that 500 kV line is currently in place to gain the aforementioned generation advantages. The construction of this project will benefit the California ratepayers more so than the construction of a new 500+ mile transmission line to access the same resources. Sharing the benefit along with the costs associated makes this project economical to move forward. The projected increases in the cost of labor, materials, and tooling require urgent action. The approval of this project, regardless of Idaho Power's participation, is vital to meeting the goals of California and the surrounding areas. In closing, we ask that you approve the SWIP North project. The electrification goals of California require urgent positive action. As demand increases, we must meet these challenges head on and ensure that CAISO is prepared. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, operator, could you please?
Can I make a comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you can, Angelina.
Yeah, great. Which it's really exciting. I think this is a first to see the IBEW coming here in support of a project that is a multi-state project that also delivers family sustaining quality jobs and ensures that we can integrate more renewables across the West. So I'm very excited to see the support and thankful and grateful for it. I know that the training needs to happen, and having visibility into a project long-term allows the training institutes to plan for that training and ensure that we have the workforce of the future ready and prepared, and that there's access and ability for young people to enter into that market and in terms of a workforce, whether it's helmets to hard hats with veterans, whether it's winters with women in non-traditional industries, or whether it's at-risk youth of previously incarcerated people. And it's also notable that the IBEW and the training institutes actually hire from the zip codes where the projects are, so that a lot of disadvantaged communities have access to those jobs as well. So that additional benefit on top of the policy benefits and I'm sure economic benefits of the project is pretty notable as well. I was just wondering if there was an estimate of the number of jobs that would be created in California as a result of this project yet, whether Idaho joins or not. Do we have that?
Ethan's returning.
Sorry.
I got off the stump a little quick. So inevitably, just kind of projection wise, right? And when we start looking at the multiple seasons that Nevada has associated with it, right? It's going to impact scheduling. It's going to impact potential clearances that are going to be had on associated transmission lines, right? So I would say peak capacity for employment, 250 to 400 jobs at any given time. That very well could come in waves, where we have, peak demand even exceeding that. That is clearly an estimate from past experience I've had.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much and appreciate your support. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you. And thank you, Angelina, for those comments. Now, operator, are there public comments that are virtual?
As a reminder to our virtual attendees, on Zoom, you can press the raise hand icon to enter the comment queue. If you are dialed into our phone-only line, you can press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the queue. At this time, we've got 2 virtual hands up. Jerry Melcher, you've been sent a prompt to unmute yourself. Please go ahead. Jerry, you said, okay.
That was a mistake. I apologize. I was not intending to provide a comment.
Thank you. Moving to our next caller. They are on the phone only line. Please give us one moment to get them unmuted. Caller ending in 7547. Your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
You want to first check that you can hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hello? Great. Good morning, Board of Governors. My name is Scott Henzel. I'm the Director of Portfolio Management at Pacific Gas and Electric Company. Thank you for the opportunity to address CAISO Management's recommendation to approve the SWIP North project as an addendum to the 2022-2023 transmission plan. PG&E supports the enablement of a diverse set of resources, including out-of-state wind, to meet California's clean energy goals. PG&E, in previous comments, had expressed concern about the process of being used to approve the SWIP North transmission line and the viability of Idaho wind. After review of the board materials, comments from CAISO management today, and ongoing conversations with CAISO, PG&E acknowledges and appreciates the inclusion of the several conditions associated with the project mentioned today, including Idaho Power's filing with their PUC, CPUC reaffirmation of the Idaho wind need, Great Basin's participating transmission owner application, submission, and hopefully eventual approval, and then as well FERC acceptance of the TO tariff and transmission revenue rate structure. Additionally, PG&E had expressed concerns and comments about the project's forward progress outside the CAISO's competitive transmission planning process. PG&E recognizes the SWIP North line represents a unique opportunity for CAISO, Idaho, and California. PG&E appreciates CAISO's acknowledgement of the unique effort and asks that we continue to focus at not setting a precedent as a result of the robust CAISO transmission planning process that includes a competitive solicitation portion for future transmission needs. PG&E will continue to actively monitor and participate in the effort and looks forward to the release of the identified conditions as we build a path forward to successfully delivering a new transmission line for all of the entities in the West. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions if folks have.
Any questions? Hearing no questions. Thank you
Scott,
for your comments.
Sorry, Scott, I was just curious, if Idaho were not to go forward, what is PG&E's position, or if that was something that had an issue?
I think we're going to have to evaluate the conditions as they're released as we go through the process. That would obviously create an additional deal of concern for us. I don't know that that would stop the effort, but I think we want to take it one step at a time and look forward to that actually Idaho participating and actually happening.
Yes, we're hopeful that Idaho will be a part of this. It's a benefit to them as well. Thank you.
100% agree.
Thank you. Operator, are there any other virtual comments?
No, there are no further hands up in the queue at this time.
Thank you. Then, Board of Governors, any other comments? Seeing none, I believe we can have the motion.
Thank you, Chair Leslie. Move that the ISO Board of Governors approves Addendum 1 to the 2022-2023 Transmission Plan, identifying the ISO's assumption of operational control of Great Basin Transmission and LS Power subsidiary entitlements on the SWIP North Transmission Line and One Nevada Transmission Line to which SWIP North connects, as a joint regional policy-driven project with Idaho Power, as set forth in the memorandum dated December 6, 2023, and conditioned upon Idaho Power filing and receiving approval for its SWIP-related case from the IPUC by September 30, 2024, the CPUC reaffirming the need for Idaho wind in its 2024-2025 TPP portfolio decision, Great Basin Transmission LLC, a subsidiary of LS Power, declaring its intent to become a participating transmission owner by July 1, 2024, submission and approval of its application in accordance with the CAISO Tariff and Transmission Control Agreement, and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission's acceptance of Great Basin Transmission's transmission owner tariff and transmission revenue requirement rate structure. I have a motion,
moved.
please.
I'll move it.
Thank you,
Second.
Angelina. Second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, governors. The motion passes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now for our next item, the 2024 budget. We'll be hearing from Ryan.
Thank you and good morning, governors. This topic will have a much smaller resolution. But we're here today to, as we are every December, to get your approval on next year's budget, also known as the revenue requirement and related components. The draft was released publicly back in late October. Since then, we've briefed you in executive session on that draft, as well as had the final stakeholder meeting. There's been just really minor adjustments the last couple of months, and April Gordon, our Executive Director of Financial Planning, is here to walk you through a quick summary.
All right. Yeah, good deal. All right, next slide, please. All right, thank you for the opportunity to present our 2024 revenue requirement for your approval. Some highlights going into 2024. Our revenue requirement is feeling the wage inflation and additional positions in our O&M budget. So the O&M is coming in higher than the 2023. That's going to be offset slightly by some higher interest rate revenue that we project coming in 2024 due to higher rates in general. We are going to be leveraging more of our capital reserve to fund some of our project budget. So you're going to see a smaller component out of our revenue requirement in 2024. And all told, the revenue requirement is going to come in about $201.9 million, which is just shy of our $202 million cap. Next slide, please. Here you have a breakdown of our GMC revenue requirement by its components. The proposed revenue requirement is coming in $2.2 million higher than the 2023. The operations and maintenance budget is our largest component of the revenue requirement. Here you're going to have a $17.3 million increase. And I'll go over more of these components in detail in the coming slides. The other item here worth pointing out is our cash funded capital is coming in $13 million less than 2023, and that's due to pulling some of the project budget from our reserves. The operating cost reserve adjustment is going to be coming in at $3.9 million less than 2023, but this is a component in which we're actually seeing the favorable conclusion of 2022's operations. And I'll go over that in more detail. When you look at the revenue requirement, we are coming in $2.2 million higher. However, if you look at the transmission volume estimate going into 2024, we are anticipating about an 8.3 terawatt hour increase. Now, despite the fact that revenue requirement is higher, we have a higher projection in our terawatt hours. Our pro forma bundled rates are actually going to be coming in lower by about 2 cents per megawatt hour. Now, this is just an idea of what a participant could expect to pay if they were to take advantage of all of the services that we have to offer in our grid management charge bundle. But it is a good indication that with these additional volumes coming in, how it's going to impact our rates. Next slide, please. I'll take you through the O&M budget in more detail. We have 6 different categories in the O&M budget. Salaries and benefits is the largest component. Here, we're going to see an increase of about $11 million. This is going to be driven by wage inflations as well as additional positions that will be coming into the organization to address some of the pinch points that we have in the flow. The next biggest increase in our O&M budget is going to be our consultants budget. And that's due to a fair amount of requests for resource adequacy studies, support for integration of new resource implementations, as well as for other various studies throughout the organization. The other area that we're going to see a substantial increase is going to be with our outsourced contracts and professional fees. Here, we're going to see an increase about $1.1 million. And that's primarily to address outsourced solutions that we have within the organization, as well as additional forecasting fees for our forecasting services. All told, we're looking at an O&M budget of about $17.3 million higher than 2023. And this would be to support 759 positions. Next slide, please. Our debt service is going to remain at $14.7 million in 2024. With this revenue requirement, we will have about $148 million left in principal towards that debt service, and that will be in place until February 2039. However, we do have the ability to revisit this in February 2031 if the interest rates are favorable for us. That $14.7 million component is broken down between $11.7 million in our debt payments due to bondholders, as well as $3 million to be collected for required reserve. Next slide, please. Now, our cash funded capital is going to see $8 million of our revenue requirement is going to be set aside to fund our project budget going into next year. We are going to propose a project budget of about $25 million. $17 million is going to be pulled from our capital reserves to fund those projects. That's going to leave our projected reserves in 2024 with about $108 million. Now, those projects are going to be used to address areas in our various portfolios, such as reliability and efficient operations, technology foundation improvements, transmission planning, as well as market and resource adequacy, stakeholder engagement, and facilities. There is also another portfolio that addresses human resources, but that one is typically funded through O&M. Next slide, please. Now, our other costs and revenues, here we're going to see about a $6 million increase in our projected amounts. Now, that is going to be primarily due to the interest earnings that we're projecting receiving in 2024 due to those higher rates. We are seeing a reduction in our reliability funding requirement, and that has to do with the cost of service study adjustment that we made for the reliability coordinator percentage from 9% to 8%. So all told, our $6 million increase is going to land us about a $63.6 million other revenue in next year, and that's going to help offset our revenue requirement. Next slide, please. All right, our operating cost reserve adjustment. Now, this is the component that really makes us whole with our stakeholders. And I sound like a broken record because I say that every year. But this is the component where any year in which we over-collect in revenue or underspend in our budget, and vice versa, that delta goes back to the stakeholders, typically in the form of a credit, reducing that following year's revenue requirement. This year, we're seeing about a $12.9 million credit going back to the stakeholders. Now, just like with other revenue, that is going to help decrease our revenue requirement, which is going to help lower our rates. Next slide, please. Now, with the additional revenue requirement, you would expect that our rates would increase, but because of the additional volumes that we're anticipating, we're seeing a decrease in our rates, not only in our grid management charges, but also some of the supplemental service rates within the WEIM market services, system operations, and then the RC rate. The only area we're going to see an increase is going to be our TOR charge, which is our transmission ownership charge. And that one's going to increase by 14.5 cents per megawatt hour. And that is due to the recalculation of that rate as part of the cost of service study that we completed this year. Next slide, please. Now, I'll take you back a little bit through the year of this development. We kicked off the initial stakeholder meeting in August. Between August and October, we completed our internal process to develop our budget and our revenue requirement. We posted a draft on October 25th of our revenue requirement in the budget book. We followed up with another stakeholder meeting on October 31st. Excuse me, Need to get my water real quick. I forgot how long it takes to actually do this presentation. Okay. Now, as part of the stakeholder meeting, we did not receive any feedback from the stakeholders. We took that as a good sign. They trusted our revenue requirement development and the components that we actually included in it. We presented the draft budget to you for review and consideration. And with your feedback, we finished our internal budgeting process, and that's where we land today. Now, with your approval, we'll go ahead and post the final 2024 revenue requirement out on the ISO website and the rates as a result of that. And I think that wraps up the presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, April. And governors, do we have any questions? Yes.
I have just a comment. I want to commend staff and all of the ISO. I think the finance side of the ISO doesn't get enough attention and is just really remarkable. If you look at the numbers over the last decade, the GMC revenue requirement has been pretty much flat at a time when the consumer price index has risen 30%. Likewise, the bundled rate has gone up about 1% during that time. So I think that the ISO is doing a lot more, not just externally, but internally, and has been doing it tremendously efficiently. As I have said publicly in the past, I think there's room to bring in more people and more resources to take some of the pressure off the staff, but I think it should be acknowledged that the ISO has just been incredibly effective at using the funds that they have. And thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, well said, Severin. Angelina, any comments?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for that. April, that was an excellent presentation.
Thanks.
And I just have one quick question for you. Do you ever take a look at competitively the other ISOs across the country and how we sort of line up in terms of our competitiveness, in terms of rates? This may be a better question for Ryan.
It is something that we all kind of, share information on. Everyone's a little bit different. Everyone, kind of develops their revenue requirement differently. Everyone has a different, grid size that they spread that. So it's hard to actually compare really kind of apples to apples. In terms of just this cost per megawatt hour, that we put up about 80 cents, it's probably in the middle of the ISOs. There's a few that are much higher than that. There's several that are lower than that with just much bigger footprints. But again, it's the actual rates that people pay just differs, wildly across the ISOs depending upon, their rate design.
Thank you, because you've done a great job, as Severin said, controlling the costs. And I think that's a management issue also, Elliot, that your predecessor, Steve, adhered to. And there's great fiscal discipline within the ISO. And as Severin said, sometimes too great a fiscal constraint among the ISO that I think we have encouraged wildly that you hire more people.
We used that financial resiliency to bring those 100 new people on board. So, and thank you for the support, by the way. And I could not agree more. And I think Ryan and his team, and honestly, all the people at CAISO, we take that financial resiliency and discipline extremely seriously. So appreciate the support.
So I'm going to defer, Stacy, to you, whether or not we take a quick 10-minute break.
Well, before
here,
we do
or
that,
do our
we may
election.
want to check for public comment.
Oh.
And we may want to vote on the motion. I know it's disappointingly short,
No.
but
No, no. Okay, is there any public comment? Thank you for that, Roger, reminding me. Operator.
As a reminder to attendees, you can press the raise hand icon on Zoom or #2 on the phone only line if you would like to make a comment. Seems there are no hands up in the virtual queue at this time.
Okay, and no public comments in the room. So
And
from
I,
there-
I just want to correct something. I was getting so enthusiastic. The total GMC revenue requirement has risen about 1% in the last 10 years. The bundled rate has actually risen about 3 or 4% at a time. The CPI has gone up 30%. So still very, very impressive.
Thanks. Thank you, Severin.
Thank you. All right, with that, I believe we can proceed with the motion.
Thank you, Chair Leslie. Move that the ISO Board of Governors approves the 2024 GMC revenue requirement, capital project budget, and resulting rates as set forth in Amendment A to the memorandum dated December 6, 2023. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Governor Borenstein and Governor Shorey. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, governors. The motion passes. I suggest at this point that let's move on to agenda item number 7. And if our presenter is not available by the time we're done with that, we can.
Our presenter was scheduled at 11.
At 11.
Yeah,
okay.
and we're scheduled to adjourn 11:15.
Okay, and then we can reference that. We can reference do the informational reports, and then we can take a break if we need to.
Very good.
Okay, excellent. So agenda item number 7 is our annual election of the ISO Board of Governors Chair and Vice Chair. Governor Leslie has previewed that for us, but we appreciate your enthusiasm. I don't know, you may be a little too anxious to pass the baton on that, but exactly. So, but let's go ahead and officially seek a nomination for both the chair and the vice chair. Governors, would you like? to
Are we
make a
doing it
nomination?
together or are we doing it one by one?
Well, the nice tradition, I think, is the chair proposes that the next chair, and then the vice chair proposes the next vice chair is just in the form of a protocol. Yes, yes.
I like
yes.
that. It has some
Nice
nice
because-
process. to
Yeah,
it.
so it's my
Good.
honor to propose Jan Shorey as the next chair of the California ISO Board, based on her experience, knowledge, and temperament.
I think that's a compliment. Yes. And Vice Chair Shorey, would you like to propose your successor to
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Drag Severin Bornstein this with me.
Kicking and screaming.
I would like to drag Severin into this with me, so I would propose Governor Bornstein to join me as our vice chair next year.
Well, let me go ahead with the motion and see if everyone agrees with you.
Well, can we say something?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I mean, it's good to have the annual rotation, as we had, as Mary pointed out, that started 3 years ago. It does provide for shared service. It does provide for us to actually create a precedent, and a historic precedent at that, where we've had 2 female chairs, one after the other. It had never happened before. And we actually had female chairs for the first time with the rotation starting. So that is really fantastic and great. And it allows for all of us to have experience with serving in that position and carrying the privilege of being able to work more closely with staff and others and learn more and in depth about the processes of the ISO. And of course, also, as Mary pointed out, it doesn't create a situation of entitlement and someone feeling like they're king. Yes, for a year, but not for all the time. So it's good and it's great. And I want to thank Mary for her service. She did a terrific job as chair. Her expertise, of course, permeated all of the decision making and all of the meetings. Your collaborative spirit, Mary, is always amazing. You're a dear friend, and you're also dedicated to making sure that renewables and state policies are something that we were on track to meeting, and ensure that we could integrate the 7,000 megawatts of carbon-free resources that we are achieving this year, which is a phenomenal milestone, and again places the ISO at the forefront of the global arena in terms of integrating renewables and making sure that the fifth or sixth largest economy, depending on which day of the week it is, maybe even sometimes the fourth, is on track to reach carbon-free by 2045. So we should all be very, very proud of that. And of course, Jan taking the baton with her experience at SMUD and NERC and having been a leader and a trailblazer for renewables herself in the public sector is extremely important. And I know we're going to be in good hands. And Severin will make sure that, you know, we do this on an economic basis and that everybody moves forward in the most optimized fashion, because as Mark Rothleader always likes to say, and I love that, the ISO is all about optimizing optionalities, and we need to make sure that we stay on the cutting edge and get to our goals as fast as possible, because we're in an existential crisis and the world cannot wait. So thank you so much, Mary, for your service. Thank you so much, Jen, for taking on the baton, and Severin to follow after. And I look forward to working with all of you. This is a great board and an incredible staff, and the ISO is a terrific, high-performing organization. Let's keep it that way.
And Angelina, I would be remiss if we went this entire board meeting without congratulating you on what might be the single largest grant to the state of California from the Department of Energy for the hydrogen hub. I mean, that you had to compete across the country. There were only 4 or 5 given, and your Arches organization won. And that's huge. And trust me, there's a lot of annoyed people in the West that did not win. I met it.
And in the East. But that's good.
So
It's great
I
for
just think,
California.
yeah, we should take a moment to congratulate Angelina. That's going to bring new jobs. That's going to bring innovation. That's going to bring, I think, you know, it's going to keep California in a leadership position in the country. So
Well, thank you, Mary. And more importantly, it unlocks a 1 to 10 matching opportunity for private funding. So every dollar that we receive from the DOE is matched by $10 from California public and private investments, which is one of the reasons we actually are the largest hub. And as the DOE said, a blueprint for success. And that will ensure that we stay on track to decarbonize other sectors like shipping, aviation, heavy duty trucking, and with a carbon-free fuel. So very, very exciting. But I'm sorry again, I want to apologize that I'm not there in person. I erred on the side of caution not to be spreading the flu among all of you. So I will be there in person next time. I was happy to participate virtually, but do miss not being there.
Thank you, Angelina. We miss you here as well, but hope you get well quickly.
Hopefully you appreciate not getting the virus.
We absolutely do appreciate that. With that, let me just ask if there's any other comments from the board before I move too expeditiously.
Please. I think
Making sure we've got everyone covered. So now go ahead with the motion. Move that the ISO Board of Governors elects Governor Jan Shorey to serve as chair of the ISO Board of Governors pursuant to Article 3, Section 4.3 of the ISO's bylaws, effective January 1, 2024 to December 31, 2024, or until a successor is elected, which shall be as soon thereafter as practicable. And move that the ISO Board of Governors elects Governor Severin Borenstein to serve as vice chair of the ISO Board of Governors, whose role will include substituting for the chair when the chair is unable to fulfill her duties, for example, due to conflicts, absence, or unforeseen reasons, effective January 1, 2024 to December 31st, 2024, or until a successor is elected, which shall be as soon as practical thereafter. And may I have a motion, please?
Moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Glad that you were in favor, Governor
I
Borenstein.
wish I had a.
Any opposed? Any
Or
op-
gavel.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Thank you, governors. We do now, effective January 1, we will have a new chair and a new vice chair. And
Any
congratulations.
problems need to occur.
Yeah, yeah.
Before the end of the year.
Yeah.
Any
Good luck with
any
that.
complaints, get them in by December 30th, please. With that, let's move to item number. So I'm just kind of taking over here. Chair Leslie, but you can
No,
kick me off the
item
microphone if you
number
want.
9, I believe.
Yes, which is, it's our informational reports, which are for reference and have been provided to the board. But this is the board's opportunity, if there are any questions on any of those informational reports, to raise those questions. No.
Seeing no
Angelina, did you have any questions? Just making sure we don't forget you there in virtual land.
No,
Okay.
I'm good. Thank you for remembering me.
All right.
Yeah, so I believe, Roger, Stacy, it's now 2 minutes to 11.
It
How
is
are we
2
doing?
minutes to 11. We can, if you'd like, we could take a
2-minute break?
Take a 5-minute break and come back at
5-minute
11:05.
break? Oh, why don't we, yeah, let's check to see, we have a special guest. I think this could be a rich tradition that we're setting now. Yeah, the pressure, affiliate pressure.
It'll be
That
11 o'clock
occasionally we
soon.
have
Keep
a
going.
featured speaker. Okay, and so I asked Elliot if we could potentially have a featured speaker. Today, Wade Crowfoot, the Secretary of Resources, will be joining us, give us an update on COP 28. And one of the things I think is quite significant about that is that he's never been to the CAISO, and he's never addressed the CAISO. So I think in the spirit of collaboration of people that we work with that are in a similar space, that this might be a nice tradition to invite people that we work with, or we are that we are interested in having friendships and collaboration with, to
Setting a
come.
pretty high
I
standard
just, I
for
don't
me
feel
here.
any pressure here at the end, but anyway, or you can ignore it entirely and set your own precedent. But anyway, in the spirit of that, we invited Wade today. So operator, can you tell us whether or not Wade Crowfoot is on the line?
I'm not seeing the name Wade Crowfoot. Wade, if you are here on a different connection, you can press the raise hand icon on Zoom or #2 on the phone only to make yourself present. No, I'm not seeing Wade on the line at this time.
So I think then we should give him a minute, since it's just 11, and take a 5-minute break. Yeah.
Yeah, so why don't we, it is, I believe, 11 o'clock. Yeah, so why don't we plan on reassembling at 11:05?
Perfect. Secretary Crowfoot,
We can see you.
we are honored to have you with us. We can see you.
So we can
Welcome.
officially reconvene our meeting. So if I can ask everyone to take their seats, and we'll turn it over to Chair Leslie for introduction of our guests.
Secretary Crowfoot, can you hear us?
I sure can. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's awesome. We're very excited to have you here at the CAISO. Your first time with the CAISO. Welcome. We welcome you warmly, the board and senior staff, as who you're seeing right now. We hope to have you here physically to see what a beautiful facility is and the exciting work that gets done in our control room. But today we were hoping you could share with us your trip to Dubai and COP 28 and the ramifications for the United States and the West.
Absolutely. Well, Mary, thanks so much. And it's a pleasure and an honor to address you. I do wish I was in person, and I promise to get there and have the tour. I know everybody that visits your headquarters comes away really impressed with everything that you balance on a daily basis. So you obviously know this, but just for folks who don't know me, I lead our Natural Resources Agency, and that our agency includes 26 departments, about 25,000 people, including our California Energy Commission. And of course, you all work very closely with Chair Hochschild and the commissioners, and we're really proud that the California Energy Commission is part of our agency. And I'll say that I worked in Governor Brown's administration prior to working for Governor Newsom, and had some opportunities to work together with CAISO on energy work back then. So it's great to be with you all, and I'll just spend a little bit of time talking about this large global climate convening that just occurred in Dubai. As I think many know, the United Nations 30 years ago in 1992 brought nations of the world together to sign the first agreement or treaty on climate change. That was during the Rio Earth Summit. And that established what's called the Convention on Climate Change, which is essentially a treaty that's managed by the United Nations. And that treaty commits the parties, those nations, to come together once annually in what's called the Conference of Parties, or a COP, to get together to talk about the implementation of the agreement and to modify the agreement. So many of us were in Dubai over the last 2 weeks at COP 28, meaning it's the 28th time nations of the world have come together on climate change. And obviously, it's more important than ever that nations of the world actually agree and implement a pathway to stabilize our climate. You know, folks, ask me, gosh, why are you flying halfway around the world for a climate conference? Doesn't that sort of defeat the point, given your carbon footprint, et cetera? It's really important to stress that and point out the obvious, which is climate change is a global crisis in nature. We all share the same atmosphere. This is the ultimate global commons. So nations from around the world, whether you're the United States or China or small countries, need to see every other nation moving and making this transition. So the UN negotiation that took place in Dubai is really necessary to demonstrate and move us in a direction. Ultimately, it's not sufficient because nation states or countries need to actually implement their commitments. Back in 2015, you may remember 5 years ago in 2019, a significant breakthrough in Paris when the COP was held in Paris. And essentially, all of those nations came together and said, we will each identify a pathway that collectively will keep our climate under a 1.5 centigrade increase in temperature, which is largely seen as an important threshold above which we have major climate disruption and even chaos. And so 5 years ago, the United States signed up for that. Fast forward, President Trump took office, tried to get the United States out of that treaty. California and 25 other states stepped up to say, America is still in, we're still leading on climate action. And since then, we've been very focused on making it clear how much progress California is making. So while California is not a negotiating member of that treaty, because that's limited to nations, we play an outsized role in these COPs. Importantly, as a proof point of what a large economy, the 5th largest in the world, can do to transition to meet climate targets. You all know as much as I do, we have now a legal mandate to meet carbon neutrality or net zero in our economy in California by 2045, 100% clean energy by 2045, which CAISO is right in the middle of helping us achieve, and numerous other targets. We have our scoping plan, which is our economy-wide roadmap updated every 5 years that identifies how we're going to reduce pollution, how we're going to transition our energy grid, our transportation, our buildings, to actually achieve net zero. And we're implementing the programs. And you guys, as you know, in the CAISO and its staff are implementing those programs that are moving us on the energy side more and more to carbon-free energy. And as my colleague and friend David Hochschild reminds me frequently, we're almost at 60% of our energy generated last year being from carbon-free. And of course, that's going up every year. So we're an important proof point of actually how we're getting it done. We also learn a lot from these COPs, and we use it as an opportunity to have what we call bilateral discussions with other governments, some countries, some regions, provinces, cities, on how they're implementing their targets and where we can learn. The delegation this year was really strong. Our Attorney General, Rob Bonta, was there. Our State Insurance Commissioner, Ricardo Lara. Our new Speaker of the Assembly, Robert Rivas, led a legislative delegation that had more than a dozen California legislators. There were a number of us from the Newsom administration, Chair Hochschild from the CEC, CARB Chair Leanne Randolph, myself, Karen Ross, our Agriculture Secretary. For the first time, we had the Governor's Tribal Affairs Secretary, Christina Snyder, there. And essentially, we're all there with the same message, which is the world needs to move faster to implement to achieve the targets we've set. And California sort of plays an important role as a model of what we can do to set clear legal targets, to establish a roadmap, and to implement programs. I'm the first one to say when in these international convenings, we don't have it all figured out in California. We've still got a lot of work to do. And as you all know, and are part of our energy transition, there's a lot that we need to manage on 100% clean energy so that this transition happens in an affordable way. Importantly, for your statutory responsibility, it happens in a reliable way. And ultimately, it happens in a way that benefits all Californians. So key takeaways from the COP, which just ended. It's about a 2-week conference, and it culminates in the negotiation, the final negotiation at the end of the COP. I went for the first week and came back, and then other colleagues were there for the second week. But essentially, those parties to the treaty, those nations around the world, made a commitment to move beyond fossil fuels, phase down fossil fuels in a just, orderly, and equitable way. The first time there's actually been international agreement, believe it or not, to move beyond fossil fuels. I think a lot of us would have liked even stronger language in the ultimate agreement, but sort of the observers of this process say it's a big deal, point the direction towards phasing out fossil fuels. Obviously, the devil's in implementation. Governor Newsom, I should say, was in New York addressing the UN himself last September and said the climate crisis is a fossil fuels crisis. And we heard that echoed in sort of the key takeaway of the agreement. Also importantly, for energy leaders, those nations of the world agreed to triple renewable energy deployment by 2030 and double energy efficiency. So I think we're going to see more doubling down on energy investments across the world. A large portion of the agreement spoke to the need to reform global clean energy finance to actually invest in the developing parts of the world, particularly the global south. Africa has positioned itself as a real solution set on renewable energy, particularly given its solar resource. But our international financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, have not yet really driven global finance to invest in those underinvested places. So, I would describe the COP as the tightest concentric circle being those negotiations. And I think we can claim some progress with those negotiations. Very much reinforces California's leadership in the direction that we're going in. And then a lot of sharing between California and other countries around the world on how we move further and faster, not only to reduce pollution and to green our grid and transportation, but how do we protect our residents from the impacts of climate change that are already here, whether it's wildfire, drought, et cetera. I should note that the delegation had, folks from government, but a lot of folks from outside of government, including state government, that is, including tribal governments, as well as businesses. Edison International was there and is usually a really strong voice for the electrification movement in California. We had our NGOs, or environmental conservation organizations. It was really a big unified delegation from California demonstrating, what we can do. Again, we're proud of our progress in California with a lot of work ahead, and the rest of the world always wants to hear more about, how we're advancing this movement. So Mary, I'll leave it there. Hopefully that provides kind of a broad brush of what we tried to accomplish at the COP and ultimately some takeaways, and would be glad to answer any questions or hear any input that you have for us coming back from that global climate convening.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us and sharing those thoughts with us, which I know you do that with no notes off the top of your head, which always ceases to amaze me. But I think that Secretary, you're such a wonderful international representative for us in California, and you've really been on a whirlwind travel schedule. I'm only aware of China, Israel, Dubai, and in Australia, where I had the pleasure of being with you this summer. But I know that your role has become quite large in the Newsom administration, and that you're relied upon to really communicate at really such a thoughtful level, because I think that you are in such great command of policy and programs, but you always bring this special quality to everything because of your sensitivity. And I think you end up being much more inclusive in terms of who you represent. And even talking about the Native Indian tribes and all, there's so many people that have been left out of these conversations historically, and you always manage to include them in a very sincere, real way. But with that, I'd like to ask our CEO, Elliot Mainzer, to say a few words.
Well, I just wanted to thank Wade for his for his leadership. We really value the partnership. And I know, Wade, the stars didn't line up to get you here in person this week. I know you've got a lot of other things on your plate, but hopefully early in 2024 and get you out to Folsom and take that full tour of the control center and just compare notes. And just again, thanks for your leadership.
I do want to tell you, though, one thing that we are wrapping up our year right now. And 2023 for the CAISO was a really impressive year because our CEO initiated a 20-year transmission planning process. We're only required to do 10 years under FERC. And it's really revolutionizing the way we are able to plan and integrate and what's happened is, as you know, we greenlighted over $7 billion worth of new transmission. Today, we approved an addendum to the SWIP North that allows us to proceed on that project. In addition to that, we greenlighted the EDAM, which is our day-ahead market this year, and created a new participating transmission owners program. In addition to my personal favorite, and probably close to yours, is that, on average, the CAISO was integrating 1 to 2 gigawatts of new clean energy every year. And this year, yesterday, it was 5 gigawatts. And we're hoping by the end of the year to be closer to 7. Now, as you know, from our planning to get to 120 gigawatts of new clean energy, we have to do at least 7 every year, right? For the next. So I would just like to say that we are very proud of that because I'm not sure people really understand, as you said, what our contribution is. And for California in the West, that is a significant contribution.
Well, Mary and Elliot, I'll just echo that. The work that CAISO is doing with the other state energy agencies to bring on this hugely scaled increase in renewables is remarkable. And the role that you have played, even as climate impacts bear down on us, like the longest, hottest heat wave 15 months ago, that you continue to maintain reliability, ensure that Californians have the energy they need to live their lives, and make the transition at this speed and scale is remarkable. I will say we will likely call you into service in coming months and years to share, just how you're doing this with other countries. Because as we talk to China and Australia, for example, that are working hard to shift their portfolios off coal, or even the UK that's trying to meet its renewable energy, the same conversation's happening, which is how do these large countries build the grid of tomorrow, and how do they bring on renewables again at the speed and scale needed to meet their climate targets. So the work you all are doing, the work we're doing in California to scale up battery storage, to bring on other sources like offshore wind, is of interest to the rest of the world. So the more that we can recruit you to share your knowledge and the journey that you're on will be really helpful.
We would love to join you in that adventure, Wade. And thanks again for all the leadership, and really appreciated your readout today. So thanks again.
Yes, thank you so much, Wade. This is Angelina. Welcome, and so wonderful to have you here. And along the lines of global leadership, the ISO indeed is a leader in terms of renewable integration and decarbonizing a grid. And we are, even though we're a subnational, the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world. So decarbonizing California has a ripple effect worldwide, and we certainly are leaders. We chair the Go15 campaign, which is the 15 largest grid operators taking a leadership role in decarbonizing the grid and integrating renewables on a global scale. So please feel free to tap into that knowledge and into that information. And as you talk to David Hochschild next time, yes, we're at 60% renewables, but another milestone that the ISO achieved this year, which is absolutely remarkable, is operating on 100% renewable energy on the grid. And we were able to do that, which is absolutely phenomenal. So we can reliably operate a grid on renewable energy. The issue is doing it 24 hours, 365 days a year, every hour of every day. So we need to focus on the ancillary technologies as well to integrate that and allow us to operate carbon-free 24 hours by 2045 and decarbonize the rest of the sectors of our economy. So we've got a lot of work to do, and California's leadership, even though we're not a state per se by the definition, what started with your participation as well during the Brown administration was to create the subnational governments and allow us to push the narrative further and actually ensure that the state themselves leaned in and started, the countries themselves leaned in and started on a more aggressive decarbonization initiative. So kudos for all the hard work. Congratulations to California for having such a delegation and for carrying the message forward, and whatever we can do as the ISO to amplify the good work that's done here and the progress that can be made and the knowledge that can be shared. I'm sure, speaking on behalf of everyone in the room, we're happy to step up and help you.
Well, huge thanks, Angelina, for those comments, but also all you've done to really propel this transition moving forward. I guess I'd just close by saying, to the Board of Governors, as well as every last member of CAISO, what you are doing, what, you are helping to lead in California, this transition that we've talked about is making a difference across the world, simply put. And so when you go home and you hear the, most recent discouraging scientific report on climate change, know that your work is actually at the center of, this global effort to combat climate change. And if we're successful, it will be a big deal for the rest of the world. The world is truly watching California's energy transition. So just huge thanks for your leadership, given that.
And thank you for your time today and for your hard work. And I'm hoping you have a happy holiday and you get to do something fun like play soccer,
Yeah.
hike.
I wish us all a little downtime before we barrel into 24.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So thank you, Wade.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, Wade.
Bye.
Chair Leslie, you may adjourn your last
Yes.
meeting.
See, that successful featured guest. Okay. All right. Yeah.
finished
And
on
with
a
that, we
high.
can adjourn.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
And yes, Angelina, we'll see you shortly.
Get well soon, Angelina.
Yes.
Yes, I will
We're
be on
not
the other
done.
Zoom.
Okay.
Silas, you can close the Zoom conference. Thank
You're
you.
adjourned.